Hello and welcome back to It's a Histocracy with me, Wafi and Paul.
Today we'll be investigating ancient nursery rhymes.
We will look at their history and their context. So what we're waiting for, let's begin.
So our first nursery rhyme is Baba Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes sir, 3 bags full. One for the master and one for the dame and one for the little boy who lives down the lane. Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the racial message that's included with the words black and master. However, although this seems quite offensive, actually it's not the actual main meaning of the rhyme. It was actually refers to the Great Custom, which was the huge tax that was put on to farmers in 1275 on wool. While this rhyme sounds innocent enough, it actually dates back to feudal England, so it's not actually as innocent as it sounds. It was an extremely harsh wool tax that was imposed on the farmers back then by King Edward the First in the 13th century. So 1/3 of the wool was taken for the king or the master, and 1/3 for the church, obviously, and 1/3 for the farmers. However, some older versions of this rhyme actually ended with "but none for the little boy who cries down the lane." And now we see in the modern version one for the little boy who lives down the lane. So I think it shows that how little was left for the people who cultivated the wool in real life back then and how they've developed it as it's got over time.
So on to the next one, which is Jack and Jill. So Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. So there's actually two from two places this actually came from, supposedly. So one was in the small village of Kilmersdon in the north of Somerset. It
Mm.
claims to be the home of the rhyme. It basically what talks about is a young unmarried couple regularly climbed on a nearby hill to conduct their liaison in private, away from the prying eyes of the village. But Jill eventually actually became pregnant, and before the baby was born, Jack was actually killed by a rock that had fallen from their hill. And a few days later, Jill died while giving birth to their lovely child. And then the other route was actually Jack and Jill being France Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette, who were convicted of treason during the French Revolution, also known as the Reign of Terror, and beheaded. So Jack, or known as in this type of the story, Louis XVI, lost his crown, so it's thrown his head, and Jill, or Marie Antoinette, head soon came tumbling after. So it's a pretty
I think that's
dark
actually,
route.
yeah, I think that's actually quite interesting because there are two stories. One's quite local and one's quite
Yeah,
national. So I think it's interesting. But I think if I had to choose one, I would definitely go for the the France one because I
yeah,
think it seems like it actually has those
yeah.
word
It makes more sense.
associations. Yeah.
So for the
Well, next
next
one.
one, yeah, it's a ring around the rosy. So it goes ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, brackets, a tissue, we all fall down. So this origin for this rhyme, like it comes from the Great Plague of London in 1665, and the rosy in the rhyme, like it's the rash that covered up people who contracted the disease, and the smell of which they tried to cover up with a pocket full of posies to try and distract the smell of the plague. The ashes were then like the cremated remains of the deceased, and well, they all fall down because they were dead.
Well, I think that's probably the one that makes the most sense in terms of
Yeah,
obviousness. I think so. I think that rhymes quite a little, quite good. But I think it's probably the darkest one out of all of them
yeah, because like
because
it's
it.
nursery rhymes are used for like young children, and in
Mm,
this like they won't actually understand the context, but when you get older and
Yeah,
realize
yeah.
history, then you actually see the dark side of it.
and that's what we see
Mm,
looking at all of these rhymes is that they have a much more darker meaning than they seem. So
yeah, definitely. Well, next one. Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to get her poor doggy a bone. When she got there, the cupboard was bare, so the poor little doggy had none. Well, I think this one's probably one of the hardest ones to actually decipher. But I think if you actually look into it, Old Mother Hubbard actually isn't a woman. If the theories are to be believed, Old Mother Hubbard is actually Cardinal Wolsey from 16th century England. As he was like a powerful member of the clergy, he found himself in Henry VIII's bad books because he was unable to get him the divorce that Catherine that he wanted with Catherine of Aragon. So King Henry is like the doggy, and the divorce is the bone, and the cupboard is the Catholic Church, which straight up refused Henry's divorce, resulting in England's separation from the Church and the Reformation.
Yeah. Right, on to the next one, which is the very well known "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star." Um, so I think we all know the lyrics, but main part
Yeah.
is that it was made by Mozart, and it was, we don't know this 100%, but it was most likely written in the early 70s when Mozart was a young man, and he had piano exercises for the music students that he taught. And his complete work was published in 1785 and was described from a popular French folk at the time, which was "Ah, vous direz j'ai maman."
Well, I have to say, so far so good, but I think this one seems like the one out of all the ones we've done so far that doesn't really have a more political history. It has
Yeah,
much more of a
It's more of
musical, like
yeah.
general history that someone's just invented. And I
yeah.
think
Someone just
even though,
invented it for his students. So
yeah, I think it's probably used in the best context out of all of them, though.
yeah,
It's still quite different to what we expected. It was more of just like a simple tune for kids to remember and sing along to, but it's actually by Mozart.
Mm,
Quite
Mozart,
surprising.
yeah.
yeah,
So the next one is Goosey Goosey Gander. So it goes, old father long legs, can't say his prayers, taken by the left leg and thrown downstairs. So this is a tale of religious persecution. So the Catholic priests would hide to say their Latin-based prayers, but they refused to follow the Protestant faith. So to avoid punishment, they would set up small rooms in their homes called priest holes to pray in. And if they were found praying in
yeah.
Latin, as the Catholics do, they'd be thrown down the stairs or put to death.
Oh my God. But I think this one's probably the harsh reality. I think at the time, persecution was very
Common.
common in
Yeah,
terms of minority groups. So I think, and when the church did split at the recent times, then it would have been quite harsh. So I think it's the truth. But I think this rhyme, well, I don't know if in England as much. It's not as popular as the other ones we've
Yeah.
looked at.
yeah.
Well, next one. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. I think those are the four lyrics that we say very commonly, but I think there are actually another eight. Set a man to watch all night, watch all night, watch all night. Set a man to watch all night, my fair lady. Suppose the man should fall asleep, fall asleep, fall asleep. Suppose the man should fall asleep, my fair lady. Well, there are several theories actually behind the origin of this rhyme. But the one that really stands out is the one about human sacrifice. It was actually believed that a bridge would collapse unless the human sacrifice was buried at the foundation. The practice is actually called immurement, which is the practice of entombing someone within a structure where they slowly die from lack of food and water. Well, if you think about it, a game was actually played while singing this song. Two kids would form an arch and others would run underneath till the end of the song. Whoever was left at the end was trapped by the hands of the two kids forming the arch. Does it sound creepy now?
That is
Oh, it
incredibly
definitely
creepy.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you just actually thought about that, then yeah.
There's also
Mm,
I'm pretty sure I saw a video on this, but when the Queen dies, I can't
mm.
remember who, but the phone call goes out to the Prime Minister, and it's the code name is for London Bridge is falling down. So
Yeah,
basically,
I think quite a lot of us when we actually say the story when we say the rhyme, we actually just think, yeah, London Bridge is falling down.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny
yeah,
compared to actually what the reality is. But
forming an arch and
mm,
hurting each other quite violently. So the
yeah.
next one is Humpty Dumpty. So Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. So this actually comes from the English Civil War that raged between 1642 and 1651. And it was
Mm,
Humpty Dumpty was basically a massive siege cannon that was used by royalist forces
yeah.
to in during the siege of Colchester in 1648. So the royalists hauled Humpty Dumpty to the top of the church tower of St Mary at the Walls, and for 11 weeks
Mm,
the cannon Humpty sat on the wall and blasted away at the attacking parliamentarian round-headed troops defending the town. Basically, his great fall
yeah.
came when the church was eventually blown up by the Roundheads, and he couldn't be
Oh,
put back together. So you could say this is much more logical rhyme in a way, but it is
Yeah.
quite childish,
Would you,
basically.
if you had a cannon, would you call it Humpty?
Don't know.
And it's like
It would be
But the
representative
thing
interesting.
of
is,
like the cartoons. There's more like sort of like an egg, so it cracks easily.
yeah,
Yeah.
But
yeah,
no, that could like connote basically like you could say like a birth of something new in a way. So it's something new
mm,
that which is hatching because it's in the egg. Like the actual cannon, it could lead to some military
Absolutely.
progress or something. But obviously,
yeah,
Oh, and apparently, yeah. Well, the mighty Humpty Dumpty to defend them, the King's Men led by Sir Charles Lucas and Sir George Lisle were soon overturned by the soldiers. So I think it's like Humpty was the savior, it's seen as. So,
yeah. Well, at least Humpty Dumpty was a good savior compared to all the others.
yeah.
well,
Anyway, next one.
the next one is three blind mice. Three blind mice. See how they run. See how they run. They will run after the farmer's wife, who cut off their tails with a carving knife. Did you ever see such a thing in your life? Asked three blind mice. So this is an ode to Bloody Mary's reign. So it was
Mm,
Hugh Latimer, Nicholas Radley, and the Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer, who were unsuccessfully, they weren't successful in conspiring to overthrow the Queen, and they were burned at the stake for the heresy. So they were Protestant bishops, and it suggests that the blindness in the title refers to their religious beliefs. And it was mistakenly believed that she also blinded and dismembered them, as the rhyme goes, as if being burnt alive wasn't enough.
I think that's probably why they call her Bloody Mary.
Yeah.
For good reason.
Mm. Well, next one is Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and pretty maids all in a row. Well, I think the Mary referred to in this rhyme is Mary the First, daughter of Henry VIII, and his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. So Henry VIII actually wanted to marry Anne Boleyn, as we know, and petitioned to the Catholic Church for a divorce time and time again, which was refused. So he isolated himself from the Catholic Church and the Protestant Reformation and created the Anglican Church. As a result of this, England was, at the time of Mary's reign, divided between Catholics and Protestants. However, when Mary came to the throne, she wanted to convert England to Catholicism again, going contrary to England's wishes, since most of England was happily Protestant. So her short reign from 1553 to 1558 was marked by the execution of thousands of Protestants. The silver bells and cockle shells are like torture devices from her time. So, and the pretty maids all in a row are referred to the hundreds of women burnt at the stake for the crime of being Protestant. So I think that doesn't leave us with a very happy ending,
Yeah.
but
I
it's a
think we
bombshell.
can sum it up by saying all of these medieval, you could say, came from medieval, and the
Mm,
medieval period doesn't seem to have
Yeah.
much joy and creative
It's mostly just like
happy.
about the church, you could say, and like three blind mice, and this about like
Yeah.
the Protestants and everything.
mm,
Like, just
Yeah.
a lot of arguments caused by religion.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.
If you enjoyed, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel.
Thanks. Hope you learned something interesting, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.